Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Falling Water. So, as I kind of thought of, I was like, okay, there's no way that Tess's mom doesn't have some kind of connection to this, because she spent so much time focused on Tess, and we see that Tess is special, especially when it comes to the whole dreaming and aspect and everything. But the fact of the matter is, she took such an interest in Tess, and the fact is that she defended Tess during the whole situation of like, oh no, don't talk about your sister not being able to handle things, she's stronger than you and everything. This episode shows you that she has a connection to this whole situation. She knows about that the whole situation is real. That's why she was meaning that, because she's like, your sister's stronger, because she knows what's going on when everyone else is telling her, like, it doesn't work. It's not like that. You never had a baby. You're just going crazy a little bit. Even with everyone telling her she's crazy, Tess is still pursuing it, believing she has a son and everything. And now it's clicking. You know, the mom is like, oh, she definitely knows what's up. Because at the beginning, you see the preview of Tess's mom talking to fake Anne-Marie Bowen, and lets her see the child for a little bit and gives him a bear. In particular, these are the bears that obviously it was brought up in the episode where we actually got to meet her mom and her sister, where they basically took their tooth fairy money and put it and stuffed it in these bears. It's like, for what reason? Why? Like, the thing is, why did she do this? Like, especially put her own daughter through all this, making her daughter think she's crazy and everything, when deep down she knows, like, what is it that they really want, and why is the kid so special? I mean, makes you wonder, is it because he's Tess's kid, because Tess herself is special, or does it just make the kid even more special? Because he's special because Tess is special, or is he just special on his own? And just the fact is that Tess is also special, is just kind of the precursor to it. I know that's not making any sense, but that begets like so much in this episode, because this episode will highly connects. I mean, obviously everything is kind of constantly connecting, but it definitely puts Burton and Tess kind of in the same limelight. I mean, interestingly enough, I get giddy every time I see that in this episode. It's like, obviously we got them all together in one dream before, but this time we had Taka and Tess actually meet in real life, and they kind of took a double look at each other like, oh, we recognize each other, but they didn't really say anything about it. And interestingly enough, because Taka's there investigating Andy's death, and he's asking all these questions to Bill, because like, yo, apparently Andy's supposed to be in an Icelandic prison, because he was basically locked up for 10 years for vehicular manslaughter. Essentially, the way Bill explains it, he hit a cow and the person that he was with in the car died. And that basically the person was Andy was released into Bill's custody kind of in a supervision type of manner. And that basically saying like, oh, Andy kind of flunked out the whole test and everything. And so he's like, oh, I gave him a ticket. He packed his bags, and I took him to the airport. And that's kind of the last thing I saw of him. He's like, you can ask the people there. But then when Tess asked him about it, I was like, oh, what was that about? He's like, oh, yeah, something about a disgruntled employee. So it's like he's lying to her. Once again, bringing up the fact is, can't trust Bill. It's just he's hiding so much, on which we learned a little bit more about him, but I'll get to that in a second. But the fact is, because we know that Andy's connected to Topeka. Obviously, we found that out last episode. But the question is Bill connected to them, or are they something? Is he kind of how many sides are there in this show? There's the three main protagonists. There's Topeka. There's Bill. There's other people involved too, because of Burton's side of the story. It's like, so it's hard to say what side everyone is on, what everyone's ultimate goal is and everything. So, cause what I'm thinking is like, the fact is, yes, it could fit the narrative that he took Andy to drop him off at the airport and everything like that when it was all said and done. I don't know, because I'm still going back to the whole point of like, the fact is you see Andy trying to drop down that hole. It's like, don't tell Bill about this. Now, was that supposed to be, now that I'm thinking about it, he was in prison and everything, was that supposed to be him trying to escape from prison? Was he trying to escape from Bill? Obviously, he was running from the Topeka people, specifically the fake Anne Bowen. Like, get away from her, but also get away from Bill. Like, obviously, he knew a lot more that, he wasn't willing to tell Tess. Because as we know, all those Topeka people are the faceless people, as we see that Andy was the one that was trying to drag her away last episode. So, Is that how all of them are represented in the dreams? If that's the case, why do they look like that, and why does Anne Bowen have a face? That's the whole thing. But it's like, it seems like Bill straight up lied. Probably Andy left on his own accord, and then, because what we saw was that he ended up shaving when he was, because that seemed like that, like probably after it was all said and done, he got away from Bill, and he was going to leave before Bill was able to track him down again. What if we end up finding out the reason why Andy ended up the way he did wasn't because of what Tess did to him in the dream necessarily, but the fact is Bill caught up with him and did that to him himself. Like I say, because he's lying about the whole thing from Tess. You could argue he didn't want to kind of mess with his study or not, because Tess kind of wanted to take a break from the whole study just because it's like everything that's going on with her son, because the fact that she can hear him, but it feels like he's being hidden away from her. But kind of getting to Bill in this episode, we learned the fact is he had a twin sister, that basically they lived on opposite walls of each other in the house, obviously, and that basically every night she would go over into his dreams and take us. Basically, they go on these wonderful adventures for the past 2 years, but then all of a sudden she kind of went comatose, wouldn't wake up. Bill was trying to tell his parents, hey, she's still trapped in her dreams or whatever. But parents, I mean, obviously, they're not going to pay much heed to that. They took her to a facility, basically pumped her full of drugs, and she just ended up never coming out of it and ended up dying at 16. And subsequently, since then, Bill hasn't been able to kind of go down that road of dreaming. His dreams are kind of like not as magical as they used to be. So he asked Tess to kind of get him along the road of the dreams and everything. Now that dream about his sister, like, why won't she let me sit with her? I'm sure that means something. Maybe it's because the reason why she didn't wake up from her dream was because of him. Maybe Bill did something back then, and maybe he's trying to make up for it, whatever it is. Because it's like the dream, every time he tried to sit next to her, it'd be like kind of like a mirage type of thing where it's like he sits down and it's like he's actually sitting in the same seat over and over and he's not getting any closer to her. But he ended up having Tess kind of pulling him away, but people with no faces show up. She sees her son and Bill's like, you go ahead, and they split up. And then the games get extra weird because Bill goes into the building, locks the door, sees the two faces got like no faces running towards him. And then like all of a sudden Bill's body starts shaking. You see all these faces. It's almost like he's splitting up into other versions of himself or something, and then that's it. It's like, what was that? Is that supposed to kind of represent like the real Bill? Like there's so many different layers to him that you're not seeing so many other faces that he's hiding behind? Or was that just be like, yo, Bill's got some super secret crap about his dreams, like what he's capable of doing in his dreams? I don't know. Like I interpret that as maybe something, it's hard to tell. Like, I don't know what that means, because I was thinking like, yo, is he about to go like, oh, turn into a monster or something then? Maybe deep down Bill is the monster that we kind of saw in the first episode, kind of saw it shadow like multiple times with Burton, then the boy was running, and then we saw it kind of chained up and everything. Maybe he's that monster. I don't know. We did end up having, like, interesting enough, Taka as well as Bill and Tess went to that same place from that dream. Taka went there, and he ended up seeing that instrument that they showed. It has like the name at the bottom of it said Kamiko. I don't know whether that's just like the brand of the music machine or the store or whatever, but it said Kamiko. And that was the same thing Bill and Tess saw in their dream. But also, that same place, they ended up going to the window where Tess saw her son. Go up there, and you see the exact place from the beginning of the episode that Tess's mom went to go visit the son, and she sees the teddy bear and realizes, oh, I gotta talk to my mom. She's hiding stuff from me. So, I'm very interested to see where that goes. Like, will her mom be willing to tell her the truth? I mean, like, what did her mom get mixed up in? What did she mix them up in that this whole situation? And because that is the question still running. Is like, definitely this kind of proves that the boy is Tess's son, most definitely, because of the way she was acting like a doting grandmother and everything. It's just like, oh, me doing this ended up destroying my family and whatnot. So, but tying into it is Burton's situation. It seems like Burton's kind of losing the entire episode. He's not sleeping that well. The kind of blonde-headed lady that's kind of considered like, oh, she's a mind reader or whatever because she's connected to this whole deal and everything. She basically is kind of like, hey, if you don't dream, you kind of like your brain kind of gets a little scattered, you kind of spiral. And that just seemed like that was kind of the theme of the episode, because it's like, first you have Burton finding out the fact is that this whole deposit that the company is making a deal for and everything is literally worthless. And it's like, okay, so what's up with this? He points it out to his boss. She's like, okay, this is fabricated information. It's like, what's up with this? Brings it up over and over again. No one knows anything. And then the entire episode, Burton keeps seeing the redheaded woman, and it's just kind of like, okay, what's going on? And she's constantly screaming, and you kind of end up seeing that she's kind of screaming for him. You should calling his name and asking him for help and everything. And when he was kind of taking the blonde-headed lady to kind of go get drugs so she can get high and everything to, you know, quote unquote, do her job. And partway through it, like, Burton ends up seeing the lady outside the car, and the blonde-haired lady's like, oh, she's so pretty. And he turns around and he's like, wait a minute, you can see her? Wait, what's going on here? Because for Burton, and that's kind of the thing, like, Burton could never distinguish whether she was real or not. And I came to the assumption the same as him, that like, oh, she's definitely fake. He only sees her in his dreams and whatnot. So obviously she was fake. But then this kind of got him thinking, like, wait, maybe she's real. But then when he goes back to open the door for the lady, because it seemed like she passed out, it's like she was gone, she disappeared. And like I said, you even saw that point when he was talking to his boss, trying to bring up all the deposits and everything. His skin was like super, like he was getting like pale, like he was sick or whatever. But then he ends up learning like kind of the reason why, because what he ended up learning from the guy that told him about the deposits being fake and everything, he kind of learned that like, kind of like what we already know, that basically the kind of thing that Jones was doing, the insider trading, was basically get inside of people's dreams. You can influence them with fear, or take away their fear, because that would basically affect, you know, stock market. It's like you have the intel that basically you can make someone decide whether a stock will go up or a stock will go down. Essentially, it's like you have that power. And he's like, oh, is that what Topeka is? He's like, no, Topeka. It seemed like he was trying to give him a base understanding of what this was all about. But the fact is, Topeka is so much more, kind of still being very vague about it and everything. Nevertheless, the interesting thing that is that Bert ends up finding out, because he's trying to figure out, like, why are we why is this deal going through? What's this whole deal with the Belgian? What's up with this, like, deposit that's worthless? And then he pieces together. It's all about the boy. He actually met him and interacted with him in a dream, and he ended up showing him some things, but he ended up getting pulled away because all these people with these cameras and everything. I was like, I didn't get it, but it's because they were basically like auctioning off the boy. And he's like, so that's what it was about, the boy. And she's like, really? No, of course not. You know, auctioning off a human person, that's very illegal and immoral and stuff like that. And that's what this was all about. It's like, but why is the boy, once again, why is he so important? Like, what is the purpose to all of that? You know, and we're still not fully grasping the part he plays in all of this. And then when it comes to Burton, you end up finding out she is legitimately real, because you see her in the real world, because she's being held captive. She was being forced as a now, whether like she was trying to get a hold of Burton the entire time, I don't know, or whether they used her to kind of control Burton, because like, you know, just like controlling like the stock market and stuff like that, you know, you can kind of do your kind of insider trading. Maybe they're trying to do a certain thing like that with Burton, trying to sway him a certain way so that they can, you know, will have their way. But it's like, yep, she is 100% real, and she's asking for Burton's help. So that's another thing to look for. And then finally, like, Taka's side of the story, which is interesting to see things kind of develop between him and Doc, you know, the psychiatrist or therapist for Alice or whatever, that basically she's like, hey, the way I do things is kind of my thing, no more, no less. That's sometimes a problem with people. It's like, you have to decide whether or not you're willing to continue things, because it's like, if you're going to want more, I won't be able to give it to you. Like, I won't be able to give you that more. So that was just kind of all that was to that. But also finding out about his mom, like, obviously we saw the screaming thing last episode, so it's like, he's asking the doctors, like, yo, what was up with that? They're like, nothing's really changed. It's kind of maybe an involuntary reaction to something. It's just, there was no legitimate rhyme or reason for her doing that. It's just kind of like, probably like, there's, in their mind, their way to justify it is probably saying, like, it was just kind of an involuntary thing, so. And then, mainly in this episode, it was the fact is that Taka's having to deal with, the fake Anne-Marie Bowen being like, what is, because she brought up the fact is the whole thing about Taka's mom being in the woods. She's like, we didn't do that. You did that. How did you do that? So is that them saying that any other time Taka's mom has kind of popped up? That's why she was looking at him from the side before he was like, he turned, but by the time he looked, she was gone because she was interested because he brought his mom into the dream. It's like, I guess what they're kind of saying is any other time his mom's popped up, it's been kind of them drawing her there. Or maybe any other time she's popped up, it has been Taka kind of drawing her in. Because the way, because she's basically saying, like, we'll give you some answers. The fact it is, your mom's not gone. That she is alive. Kind of, I guess, kind of a similar situation to Bill's twin sister. The fact that she's trapped in her dreams. Her body, if you can, joining with them, they can help him save his mom. It's kind of draw her consciousness from the dream world and put it back in her body. So, the fact of the matter is, Taka is able to interact and even pull her into the dreams and stuff like that, pull her away from where she is. And I don't know. It's like, I'm curious to see what kind of answers Taka will get next episode. Because it legitimately, once again, kind of bringing it up, you don't know whose side everyone's on. The people that are currently selling the kid, I originally thought they were kind of connected because they're kind of, Jones is kind of connected to Topeka and everything, and fake Anne-Marie Bowen is connected to that. But the whole thing is like, hey, the boy was taken from them, because that was the whole thing about fake Anne-Marie Bowen telling that to Andy last episode. But the thing is, I didn't really pick this up until the commercial break happened. The reason why they're trying to take Tess is because Tess is their only way of getting, like, there's a connection between them. Like, even though he's being held somewhere, she could still hear him. But the fact is, like, why was Burton able to get to him, but even Tess isn't able to? Is that just kind of a slip up? Was Burton able to kind of get through it before everyone kind of pulled him away, just kind of pulled up the barrier so he wouldn't have access to the boy? I'm very interested to see what happens. What's going to be the event that kind of draws everyone together? I'm like, that's what I'm super excited about, because I like that about shows, especially a show like this where everyone's kind of torn apart, like everyone's got pieces to the puzzle. I want to see what happens when everyone kind of comes together. I've kind of caught previews of like the season as a whole, and I feel like those points obviously come up much later on, but I'm sure, I mean, well, not much later on, because I'm not actually sure how long this season is going to be. Like, I think USA stuff typically is like 10 or 13 episodes, most definitely around that. I think 10 episodes. I'm not sure what episode this is. This might be like 7, 6, maybe. I don't remember. So there's probably like quite a few. So I'll go as far as saying like 10. So it's kind of, I'm curious to see what is it that kind of ends up drawing them together. Like I said, because they all have pieces of the puzzle. Once again, I still don't trust Bill. I'm curious to find out what his part is in all this. Like, what is it he's up to? Why is he lying? Like I said, I'm sure one reason why it could be like, so he doesn't scare Tess away because of the whole Andy situation. It's like, what's going to happen when everyone else finds out about it? Because I'm sure Taka's going to question the others. Or was it the fact that only questioning Bill was enough? Will he not question the other people that are part of the study? Or will Bill not give up those names anyway? Just so many questions. And I guess we'll just have to wait to see if we get any answers next episode. I think I literally say that every time, but it's still true. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.